Hey guys, it's Essentially Meg and welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to talk all about selecting your vendors, and last week I know that I talked about the order in which you should probably talk to these people, but it takes a little bit more than just reaching out. As always, I'm coming at this from the perspective of somebody who is having a destination wedding as well as a back home reception, but a lot of the stuff that I'm saying is going to apply to people who also are just having an in-town wedding and reception. For example, you're going to have to talk to a travel agent, whether or not you're going on a honeymoon or having this destination wedding. You're going to have to talk to the resort, which you're going to be staying. You'll have to talk to the reception venue back here in the States. You'll also have to talk to a photographer if you're not interested in using the one that's provided by the resort. And also guest accommodations for people who are interested in coming to your back home wedding reception and maybe are coming from out of town and need a place to stay. So I'm not going to be able to list all of the questions that I would ask each of these vendors in this video in order to keep it a reasonable length, but I am going to come up with a Google Drive document that I'll link down below, which has all of the questions that I'm thinking about whenever I'm walking into these meetings with these different vendors. And you can use that as a jumping off point for your own questions that you need to come up with before these meetings. And an important thing to think about before even asking these questions is, what would you prefer the answers to be? Don't walk into this with just a list of questions and then just accept the answers. Just as important as coming up with these questions is coming up with the answers that you would really like to hear before walking into the room. Also, before contacting a vendor, emailing them, calling them, setting up a meeting, look through their website thoroughly. As somebody who actually used to work for a place that would rent out the space to weddings, a lot of the questions that we would get were easily answered by the first page of our website. And asking these questions takes away time that you could be using to ask the more important questions that they don't list on their website. Some things to keep in mind while you're doing this initial research are there packages within your budget? Do they list the times that they're available for events? And do they clearly list any restrictions that you should be aware of? Now, going into a vendor meeting, try to have somebody else there with you. Maybe your mom or dad, maybe your fiance, maybe your maid of honor or your best friend or something like that. It's always good to have a second opinion there and a second set of ears in case you miss any important information. I'd recommend that you dress professionally if you're meeting them in person. You don't need to be too formal, but don't wear shorts and flip-flops. This is their job, and showing respect for their profession shows that you are serious about booking them for an event. It also helps them judge whether or not you're somebody to be taken seriously. You should try asking open-ended questions. Don't ask questions that have just a yes or a no. Try to ask things in a way that they have the opportunity to expand, and don't fill up the empty space with talking. You can always leave a little bit of empty space in a conversation because people will just jump up and want to fill that empty space. You're here to get information from them, so leave that door open for them to answer your questions. Pay attention to how you're feeling about them as they're answering your questions. Do you feel like you're really connecting on a lot of these ideas about how you want your event to be, or do you feel like they're pretty closed off or you're not really connecting on anything? Ask what their standard terms and conditions are, and don't be afraid to ask why. You can also ask if they're open to negotiating if it's not what you expect. Take notes. It's really important to try and take notes during these meetings because you're never going to be able to remember everything that they said. Of course, thank them for their time at the end of the meeting. This sets off the relationship on a good foot. Do not sign a contract at this meeting. No matter how good you feel about it, it's always good to just sleep on it, go back through your notes, go back through your memory, talk to another person about it. You can always have them provide you with a contract, and then you can walk away and say, all right, I'm going to review this and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Or you can have them send the contract via email to you so that you can also review it again later at a different time. You want to take the time to read through the contract, make sure that it is what you're expecting based on the conversation you just had. And after a vendor meeting, read through your notes again. Research their website again. Maybe something that's on their website that you had questions about now kind of clicks after talking to them. Talk about this with someone you trust, especially if there's anybody that's going to be providing money towards this decision. Do they have any questions that you forgot to ask? Feel free to send a follow-up email, especially if you ended up with questions that you didn't get to ask during the meeting, or if you have questions that came up during that conversation you had with a trusted person afterwards. But one thing is for sure, read through your contract before signing it. Make sure that you understand all of the different clauses and what's expected of you, as well as what's expected of them. And again, I'm going to be listing all of the questions that I'm asking my vendors in a Google document that is linked down below. These are all coming from me looking around online to a whole bunch of articles. There are lots of articles that are available for you to get ideas about questions, as well as my experience working at a venue that used to rent out for weddings and events. Now, selecting vendors and working with vendors doesn't need to be scary, and it doesn't need to be complicated. It's just people understanding what is expected of each party, really. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below for more videos on destination wedding planning and travel and all kinds of other stuff. The question of the day is there any one kind of vendor that you want me to go into a little bit more detail about? Like what kind of questions that I would ask them in that first get to know you meeting, or how to research for them? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye. Hey guys. Yeah, it's only getting louder. All right, time to pause. It's even louder this time. What do I want the question of the day to be? I really need to figure these things out before I start recording.